Hi, I'm Steve Rawlings, and I'm the director of Leading to the Light. And I want to share a story today with you about one of our workers. His name is Bilay. And he currently is the director of one of the dormitories that we're supporting in Thailand. When Bilay was 7 years old, he had massive pains in his body, and his parents didn't know what to do. They lived way in the mountains in Myanmar. They were from a very poor village. They were just farmers. They just barely had enough to take care of their family. And Bilay was in great pain. They didn't know, only thing they could do was take him to the local witch doctor and see if maybe that would help him. So they took Bilay to the witch doctor, and he did a bunch of things and gave him some medicines. And Bilay told me he felt a little better that night. But when he woke up in the morning, he felt worse than ever, and he was just crying out in pain. His dad decided that he would walk and try to find a clinic where he could get some medicine to help his son. Well, 2 days later, the father came back with I think it was a penicillin shot, and they gave it to him, and Bilay never walked again from that point on. So Bilay was made to stay home. He couldn't walk through the jungle to school. His parents didn't feel comfortable. It was about an hour walk to school, and in the rainy season, it's slippery and dangerous, and they just kept him at home. He stayed at home, and he helped him in the rice fields, and he grew up never going to school. Well, when he was age 17, the Burmese army came to his village, and there was gunfires and screaming and people running everywhere. And Bilay's mom ran to him and said, "Bilay, run to the river and cross over to the refugee camp and stay with your sister." Bilay said, "Mom, you come with me. I don't know how to get to the river." "No, there's no time, Bilay, go." And she turned and ran the opposite direction. Well, Bilay turned around. He started crawling as fast as he could through the village to get to the jungle and hide. And as he was crawling, a friend saw him and picked him up and started carrying him, and they were running to get out of the village and into the jungle. And just as they were getting ready to enter the jungle, Bilay's friend was shot in the back and killed, and they both went falling to the ground. Bilay cut up his knees as he fell, and now he's not sure what to do. He just keeps crawling through the jungle, and he hides because he's not quite sure how to get to the river. So while he's hiding here, and there's smoke and gunfires and just confusion, he saw a man running towards him, and it was an officer of the Karen military. And he said, "Please help me, can you take me to the river?" The officer looked at him, and he saw his crippled condition. He said, "No, I don't have time, but here, take my gun." He gave him a box of bullets, and he said, "Shoot as many as you can and then kill yourself." And Bilay's like, he never used a gun before, and he didn't know what to do. But he told me before he was able to leave that area, 2 other men had come along, given him bullets, and said, "Shoot as many as you can and then kill yourself." Well, he was pretty desperate and not sure how to solve this situation. But he heard a motorbike. After the commotion died down, he heard a motorbike coming through the jungle, and he looked, and it was one of the villagers, his neighbors, and he knew him, and he said, "Please help me get to the river." When this man gave him a ride to the river, he went over to the refugee camp, and he stayed with his sister. Well, while he was at the refugee camp, his sister was going to one of our schools, and she told him, "Bilay, you should go to school." Here he's 17 years old and never had any schooling at all. He was kind of embarrassed about that, and he didn't know for sure. He knew it was a Christian school, and that made him a little nervous, but he was looking at all the boys as they had their nice pants and button-up shirts, and they looked really sharp, and he thought, "Boy, I would like to have clothes like that. Maybe I'll go to that school." And so he went. He started going to school. He started at first grade, and by the time he was 25, he graduated from the 12th grade in the school. Well, when he finished, he had learned a lot about Jesus, and he had given his heart to Jesus and become Adventist. And he wanted to, people had helped him and he wanted to help people. And so he asked the pastor, what could he do? The pastor brought him to our Bible school. He went through a Bible training, and then the pastor said, why don't you go down to this area? There's 4 families I know of that are new Adventists, and they have no place to meet. They need someone to lead them. Why don't you go down there and take care of them? So Bilay moved down to this area. He built a little bamboo hut, and this all happened just a month or 2 before school was going to begin. And people started coming to Bilay and saying, would you keep my child and so they can go to that school over there? And he said yes. And he kept saying yes, and by the time school started, in his little 12-foot by 12-foot bamboo hut, he had 20 children sleeping on the floor every night. And he wanted to, people had helped him, and so he wanted to give back and help them. And he was committed to making sure that children who needed help could know about Jesus. And so he worked there for a year. The first year, they all stayed in this little bamboo hut. And then a man from Japan heard about his situation and came and built a dormitory for him so they could move into a larger dorm. Well, about that, just after that dorm was finished, the pastor asked me, why don't you come down to this project with me and look at it? And I didn't know I was going to Bilay's dorm, but when we got there came Bilay crawling up to meet me, and I was so happy to get to see him again. I had met him in 2007 when we took our Mission Vision tour, and I hadn't seen him since. And so as I walked around that campus, I watched the activities, and I saw these kids. My heart was just broken. These kids were just, they came from homes where the father or the mother had died, or they had no parents. Some of them were living in a village in Myanmar that was a pretty good sized village and had a pretty nice school, but children kept disappearing from that school and being stolen and put in the human trafficking. And so parents were afraid to send their children to those schools. So when they hear about Bilay and there's a safe place for their kids to go and live and get an education, they're willing to send their child at 7 years old to Bilay's dorm, and so that in hopes that they'll get a break out of the poverty that they had to grow up in. Well, when I go to the dormitory to visit with them, we get to play with the kids, and I've seen Bilay on his motorbike. All he can do is crawl, but he has a motorbike, and he can get up on that. It has a sidecar, so he can drive it around. And I've seen him playing in the field. He's driving that bike in circles, chasing kids around, and the kids are just laughing and having a great time. They're playing tag, and Bilay is it. And they just love Bilay. And for me to be able to support these kids and this project has been just a blessing. And we give them, we go there and we visit, we do worships. We've sent people to do week of prayers, and the kids are really learning about Jesus. Most of these kids, when they came, did not even know what Jesus was. And so it's a project that is really special to me because I've known Bilay for so many years. One day Bilay said, come over to the school with me. I want you to meet the principal. And so we went over to the school and we met with the principal. And the principal was telling me, this is a Thai school, and all of the kids are from Myanmar. Legally, they're not allowed to go to school because they don't have Thai papers. But this principal told me, he said, when he met Bilay, and Bilay had been such an active part of the community and helping people, he said, I'm going to help Bilay. And he went to the government, and he got permission to take Bilay's children for 1st through 3rd grade. And he said, but these kids are so good. If they're doing well in school, I'm going to make sure they make it to 8th grade. And the dorm where Bilay is a light in the community. And one morning I was there, I told the kids, I'm walking to school with you today. And it's about a half a mile. Actually, it's about a half an hour walk. It's more than a mile. And we walked along, and it's so fun. And they were so happy that I'd get up that early in the morning and walk all the way to school with them. But I just had a camera, and I'm taking pictures and talking to them and asking them questions. And it was just a lot of fun. And I really love these kids, and I want to make sure that they have the food and the supplies that they need so that they can focus on learning about Jesus and not just surviving the day. If you'd like to know more about Bilay and the work that we're doing, you can go to leadingtothelight.org, and you can find I think there's a tab at the top that says Bilay's dorm, and you can read his story. You can see some pictures of the kids, and we'd really like to have you contact us about how you could get involved and help. So pray for these kids and pray for Bilay. When I met him, he was 30 years old, and now he's at 46, and he's planning to take care of children until Jesus comes. Thank you for praying and thinking about Bilay.